Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. Ayn Rand is controversial mainly for believing that net individualism yields a better world than collectivism, and relatedly, that allocating resources based on candidates' merit yields a better society than when those resources are distributed for the purpose of increasing equality of demographic outcome, or at least the primary purpose. She appears prescient in her prediction of the subordination of reason to feeling. We honor today lived experience, anger that can even devolve into illegal violence, and more often into lemming beliefs. Most of Ayn Rand's quotes are, I'm going to give them precisely verbatim, but occasionally I've edited her very slightly for clarity. Here's the first, and I'll simply go from one to the other with a little pause so you know that they're separate. From the smallest necessity to the highest religious abstraction, from the wheel to the skyscraper, everything we are and everything we have comes from one attribute, the reasoning mind. When people reject reason as the standard of judgment, only one alternative remains: feelings. A mystic is a man who treats feelings erroneously as tools of cognition. Argument from intimidation is a confession of intellectual impotence. Rights are not a matter of numbers. Actions forbidden to an individual shouldn't be permitted to a mob. When we renounce the retaliatory use of force, society is left helplessly at the mercy of the first thug who decides to be immoral. Such a society achieves the opposite of its intention. Instead of abolishing evil, it encourages and rewards it. You can avoid reality, but you cannot avoid the consequences of avoiding reality. The hardest thing to explain is the glaringly evident that everyone has decided not to see. I would add, it's not only decided to not see, but they're deciding to not see was made not to see by society's biased mind molders that are in the colleges and especially in the media. Now, I need to adjust something here so that I can see this. Give me a second. It'll be okay. Just give me a moment. Well, I'm hoping this will work. The hardest thing to... I already said that. Okay. Observe how many people evade, rationalize, and drive their minds into a state of blind stupor in dread of discovering that those that deal with their loved ones or friends or business associates or political rulers are not merely mistaken, but evil. This dread leads them to sanction, help, and spread the very evil whose existence they fear to acknowledge. That's a bit complicated for listening to, so I'm going to read it again. Observe how many people evade, rationalize, and drive their minds into a state of blind stupor in dread of discovering that those they deal with, their loved ones or friends or business associates or political rulers, are not merely mistaken, but evil. That dread leads them to sanction, help, and spread the very evil whose existence they fear to acknowledge. Freedom of speech includes the right to not agree, to not listen, and to not finance one's own antagonists. In a free society, one does not have to deal with those who are irrational. One is free to avoid them. I would add, that's not so easy in today's era of what I call the 3 C's: censure, censor, and cancel. Back to Ayn Rand. The precept, judge not, that ye be not judged, is an abdication of moral responsibility. It is a moral blank check that one gives to others in exchange for a moral blank check one expects for oneself. So you think that money is the root of all evil? Have you ever asked what is the root of all money? I believe she would say, and this is I'm adding, the root of all money is the creation of value that people are willing to pay for. Back to Ayn Rand. Money demands that you sell not your weakness to people's stupidity, but your talent to their reason. And finally, self-esteem can be maintained legitimately only so long as one is engaged in growth, committed to the task of increasing one's efficacy. Anyway, those are quotes from Ayn Rand's work from various places, various of her essays and books, etc. In any event, I hope you found it stimulating, perhaps different from the usual kind of thing that we are allowed to hear today, but hopefully useful food for thought. In any event, I'm Marty Nemko. I welcome your thumbs up and accept your thumbs down. I always look forward to your comments, and especially like it if you hit the share button below. Share on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And I am flattered if you choose to subscribe to my channel. In any event, I do thank you for watching. I am Marty Nemko.